So, good morning, everybody, and welcome to NIFFF 2025. We are very happy to kick off our new Imaging the Future symposium this year with a really important subject. The art of sustainability. So it's a subject we like to tackle at the festival in any shape of form, because it is of course very important. But this time we wanted really to really talk about it in the field of VFX animation and digital creation. So just to let you know that the festival is trying to do its best for green, for ecology and sustainability. And in the program we have like Éco-conscience en séance path through the film. So if you want to the film and the creation and the artistic proposition of the festival. So if you want to see some representation of what we want to show at the festival, and if you want to know what we do for ecology and for sustainability, we also have a web page where we have our actions for this for the climate and for society and for everything, because we talk about it and we try to walk the walk, as they say. So I'm not going to talk longer because we have like a wonderful panel, but I'd just like to thank Nadège Pio and Eric Salberg for organizing, curating this wonderful program. It's going to be 4 days of NIFFF extended, so until Thursday there are so many conferences, very interesting about literature, VFX, and game design. So I hope you're gonna attend the other conferences. And for now, I'm gonna leave the floor to our moderator today, Gudula Meinzolt, who is like certified green consultant, film producer, and co-founder of the association Green Film Action, who's gonna introduce our very interesting panel. So thank you, Gudula, and thank you, everybody.
Bonjour et merci. Bienvenue aussi de ma part. L'association, the Association Green Film Action Network for Sustainable Film and Cultural Scene in Switzerland, is committed to raising awareness, networking, imparting knowledge, and further education. We are convinced that the film and entertainment industry must also fulfill its responsibility with regard to the climate crisis and contribute to reducing carbon emissions. Together with my colleague, co-president Karina Kaiser, we created the network a few years ago when we completed our training as green consultants, and when we realized that Switzerland is slowly moving towards greater sustainability. There's a common website, Sustainable Arts, a carbon calculator, training for green consultants, and a few individual initiatives from the side of the festivals as well. But so far, there's hardly any possibility to get advice, to network with the colleagues, or to consult a list of minimum requirements, or even get incentives from financing partners. With this in mind, we can certainly learn from our neighbors, from whom our guests come today, the United Kingdom, Austria, and France, which are ahead of Switzerland in many respects. Even though sustainability usually refers to green filming, from development, production to distribution, it also involves questions of ethics and social sustainability. Our speakers will discuss this in more detail when they talk about their work. Another aspect of sustainability plays a particularly important role, especially in animated films and entertainment industry, green storytelling, which refers to how stories are told before and behind the camera. And as an industry, we have a great responsibility to raise awareness among viewers about these climate issues. We will also hear from our speakers regarding this green storytelling and its importance. Also, festivals play an important role as opportunity to come together and exchange ideas, which is also very important for advancing sustainability. Perhaps we can learn from each other or support each other, stand together against the rollback of political, sustainable and social progress. So maybe we can touch these issues as well. What is, how you feel this rollback, or if it's important, for example, for your companies and for your activities, and how we can support each other. That's also why the initiative of the NIFFF is so important, because it promotes networking, awareness, and knowledge transfer. We will hear different approaches and experiences from our three speakers, and we may discuss afterwards different issues, some ideas. How can the desire to offer customers increasingly unusual great images and visual effects, and thus remain competitive in a highly competitive environment? And on the same time, how can these efforts be combined with the need to reduce the ecological footprint? Could voluntary or mandatory restrictions also be an opportunity to become even more creative? What kind of political administrative framework is necessary or useful in order to implement and enforce these measures? Keywords would be data collection, reports as best practices, certifications, labels. What specific goals and measures are the companies implementing to achieve greater sustainability? Does this also lead to a competitive advantage? And where are the specific challenges, and how can we support each other by exchange and networking? I have the pleasure to now introduce you to our wonderful speakers, who will certainly inspire you as they did me during the preparation of this moderation. There's first Jonathan Harris, CEO and VFX Supervisor at Dupe VFX in UK in Sweden, one of the few studios to assess its carbon footprint. Dupe is also B Corp certified, working to both environmental and social criteria for the intended transition. Then we have Barbara Galante, green consultant, certified green consultant as well, who helped also develop the Austrian Film Institute's requirement for animated films, and is here today as representative of People, Culture at Arx Anima in Vienna, Austria. Vincent Moncho, General Director of the Octobre Numérique, Fairmont Festival en France, et collaborator of Fabula, an agency for playful practice and critical thinking of sustainable tech, who will present the perma-computing initiatives. We will hear 3 times 20 minutes presentations from our speakers, and then have a discussion 25 minutes around. Please keep your questions until the end. We will have time for you to ask them. So thank you very much. And without further ado, the floor is yours, Jonathan. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Can you hear me okay? Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks for having us. It's a pleasure to be here and talk about this topic that's dear to our hearts at Dupe. I'm going to give you a little insight into our journey on this topic, and first just a little intro on Dupe itself. So we are an independent studio in London. We're focused on creating good relationships with our clients and our team, and we've always had a general intent doing this with the sustainability hat on. And this is us in London. So our mission is a clear statement on the website, and always when we win jobs, we try and talk about it in the same way, that we deliver world-class visual effects whilst trying to inspire change in the industry that we love. when I started the company, there wasn't so much conversation around any of this topic. And so, we try and attend events like this. We try and present our work with a little twist of like how we achieve the work whilst being sustainable. And I shall tell you a little bit more about that later. So first, a little bit about our work. So we're working with all of the major studios, as you would in visual effects at the moment, and delivering on multiple shows with a variety of visual effects, CG environments, water simulations, crowd replication. So we did a lot of work on sex education, a show called Liaison for Apple TV, a big Disney show called Renegade Nell. And so, we're very much trying to be respected and have a good reputation for our creativity, so that when we talk about sustainability, it has a bigger impact and we have a bigger audience. So they work in tandem with each other. It's important that we deliver excellence so that we garner that respect. So I'm just going to play a little show reel, and then we'll get into the carbon journey. Thanks. So that's a little sample of our work. There's a lot more to see on our website. You're welcome to go and check us out in more detail. So a little bit about myself. I started the company about 7 years ago. I'm a Nepo baby, so to speak. I was born into the industry. My parents, mum's a film producer, father's in special effects. So I grew up sort of immersed in the industry from a very young age. And, it was very exciting, but I saw also that it was not sustainable in many ways, the working hours, but also the environmental impact. And I then went on and had a freelance career, and then I started Dupe in 2018, and it was very important to me to start a company with some other intent than just sort of visual effects. So today we're going to talk about the B Corp journey, which is a certification that we took on when the company was started. And then I'll talk a little bit more detail about how we do carbon measuring and monitor our carbon footprint, and the innovations and the next steps of reducing carbon around that. And then I've got questions here, but maybe we'll save the questions to the very end with all of us together. So B Corp. For those who don't know, B Corp is a certification, much like fair trade for coffee or chocolate. Their motto is business for a force for good. And I discovered this reading this book. It's the guy that started Patagonia. And it was just a happy coincidence. When I started the company, I discovered B Corps and this movement. And it gave me a foundation of how to create a business with good morals, good intent, good infrastructure. So it was a sort of guideline, a foundation for me to follow when starting the company. So it worked well to sort of do it together. A lot of people that become B Corps have, trying to convert a company to a B Corp is a sort of harder journey. But if you're starting from the beginning, it's actually a little bit more straightforward. So it's a big movement, it's a global movement. It started in America in the 70s, but has only in the last 5 to 10 years sort of built some traction. I think in the UK there's around 3,000 B Corps, some big companies, lots of small companies. And generally it's just about sort of, I don't know, they call it capitalism 2.0 or social capitalism, or just using your business other than just making profit. They call it the triple bottom line. So people, profit for people, planet, profit, people and planet. So yeah, I think I was keen to start a business that had some other things going on, other intent, and the B Corp gave me that infrastructure, as I said. And I knew I wanted to tackle some of the working hours within visual effects and environmental awareness. I've talked about most of this, yeah. So it's about people, planet, and profit. So those are sort of the pillars, and in general about trying to use your business to have an impact. So what does it take to become a B Corp? We started in 2018, so it took about 2 years. It's a huge sort of questionnaire, if you like, and sort of point system. You have to assess your whole business to all the details of policies and practices, and you get reassessed every 3 years, I think is at the moment. And the assessment itself is getting updated and sort of modernized as things change. And it covers 5 key areas: workers, so the people that work for you, the governance, and how you're sort of sharing, how you go about doing your business, your transparency, your customers, the community that you're impacting, and then the environment. So the B Corp topic is huge and covers so many areas, but we became very passionate about the environmental pillar within that, and that spurred us on to get obsessed with carbon tracking, and as we realized that no one was really focused on that in our sector. So dupe has a B Corp impact score of 81. You need to get past 80 to be a B Corp, and I think the top score can be like 130. Companies like Patagonia are hitting 120, and you need to improve each year. You can't stay at the same score, so it's quite a lot of work, and needs a lot of you need to be motivated and focused on keeping that. You have to officially change your articles of association, so like legally you are a B Corp, and you're held accountable not just to the shareholders, but the stakeholders, everyone involved in the business. So in visual effects, it seemed a bit odd in the beginning. Everyone was, no one knew what it was, and like, why is it important, and also seemed quite questionable since we're doing so much rendering, using so much electricity, and everyone thinks that B Corp is just about sustainability, and there isn't much clarity on it. So the journey has been about educating sort of the team internally and also externally, the clients, and trying to do events like this, trying to spread the awareness. I think there's 2 other companies I know in the world that are B Corps, and one of them unfortunately just closed down. So I think there's just 2 of us left. So it hasn't sort of grown as I would have hoped. But there's definitely more awareness, and certainly a lot more awareness on carbon tracking. In general, if you came to work at Dupe or you were working with us, you you wouldn't notice a huge difference sort of on the day-to-day, but I think there are sort of small details everywhere where you realise that we're having a slightly different conversation. You know, we're looking at how we do our work through a sustainability lens. So it sort of impacts all areas in a sort of small way, and they all add up to us being a B Corp. So yeah, as I said, the B Corp journey inspired the carbon journey. And one of my colleagues became a sort of certified carbon measurer, or I forget the term. And we embarked on this journey of carbon tracking about 4 years ago now. And as we all know, and it's been said today already, you know, this is a huge global issue. And you know, we want to do our part as a company, but we also want to sort of raise awareness and spread the knowledge. So our mission has been, we set ourselves the mission of being carbon neutral and tracking our carbon, but equally as important, trying to spread the awareness of how we've done that and how we've achieved that. So we are creating a carbon footprint guide, for example. We're trying to do these talks. We're trying to be very sort of open source about how we're doing it. It's not a sort of secret, and we want to help others on the journey. So we have actively helped other companies try to become B Corps or figure out how to do their carbon tracking themselves. So yeah, just generally the impact of carbon in visual effects is, you know, mostly 95% are computing power. We obviously use a lot of computers, but we do a lot of rendering, and we have a render farm. So you know, that's where we have our biggest impact. And so in some ways, it's fairly straightforward to just focus in on the computing infrastructure and measure that. So for some of you here, if you're here, you probably understand a lot of this, but the first steps are measuring, trying to get awareness of you know, how much carbon we're using, and then moving into reducing, and then sometimes questionable offsetting. Just checking my clock. Okay, so. Yeah, as I said, we measure mostly the electricity usage, and we use the greenhouse gases protocol. There are other protocols, but this is sort of a common protocol to use. So scope 1, 2, and 3, which you know, basically help you measure within different areas of your company, and it's part of a kind of global guidelines of how to do that. So everything that we're doing is sort of within this greenhouse gas protocol, meaning that it's sort of transferable to around the world, and we're sort of using the same practices. So for us, it's become a huge amount of data collection, a lot of spreadsheets. We started by measuring head count and sort of taking a carbon footprint per person, and then just sort of doing it by a multiple of head count. And then we sort of got more into the detail, and now we can measure sort of we got down to what's it called? I forget the term now. Compute. I think it's probably in here. Computer cycles, I think it's called. So right now we can measure like one computing task. You know, if we're working on a shot and we're doing, one artist is doing a render, we can measure the carbon footprint of that shot, of that person in the studio, of the whole TV show, of one sequence. So it's all sort of spreadsheet based, fairly manual. Well, not manual, but fairly sort of clunky. It's not sort of a live Grafana of output, but we're working on that. And the idea would be that we can we, as a show is sort of progressing, we can sort of on a weekly basis or a daily basis see where we're having the biggest impact, you know. So the dream would be to sort of say, think something is, you know, not very efficient in this setup, we're burning a lot of carbon on this sequence, maybe we should approach it in a different way. So we're trying to get into that granularity of how we work and give that feedback to the artists so that we tweak our working methods. Three minutes to go. So yeah, the source is our meter readings, our crewing, our scheduling, our render farm. We consolidate all of that data, and we use the greenhouse gas protocol to sort of do the conversions, and then that generates reports. We have internal reviews and discussions. We try and post it publicly. So if you go on our website, you'll see a carbon report for one particular show. We need to get permission from Netflix or Apple for that, but and they're a little bit nervous about it sometimes. But that generates more awareness, and then we're developing other initiatives to start reducing our carbon footprint. Here's an example of one of the spreadsheets. You can see that we get into all details from travel, but most of the carbon footprint is down in scope 3, and you see, yeah, electricity is sort of the biggest impact there. So I'm going to skip over this slide. I think we'll get into sort of the questions, you know, how it impacts our teams and what do the clients think about it. Is it important to them? I think we can tackle that a bit later. So at the moment we're generating a carbon report per show and using this to have discussion points with our clients. It was a dream it's an idea to sort of see if we can charge the client. Maybe they'd be interested in offsetting. Here's your footprint for the work that you did with us. Do you want to sort of join us in offsetting? Again, you know, it's not about the money really, it's just about the conversation and the sort of awareness for everyone involved, the team and the clients, so that we sort of collectively start reducing. So on reducing, it's the same sort of for all industries. You know, green energy has a big impact, awareness has a huge impact, changing behaviour. If people understand what they're doing, have that awareness, then they do start changing their behaviour. If we can sort of come to them and say, look what's happening here, something looks different, they can create more efficient setups. We're also looking at greener technology, and it's always really important to keep tracking your data, sort of see where you're improving and sort of keep going round in that circle. Good feedback loop. Here's one innovation that we're working with a company called Heater, and they are an amazing company. They've created a product which you attach to a boiler system, and any rendering computing power would heat up the water in that boiling system, and it's heating up social housing homes. So we're working with them on moving a majority of our server system to a council estate in London. And then any work that we're doing, rendering, is going to heat up the water system in that, and you end up saving twice. You know, you're reusing that heat that's generated, and you're not spending money on cooling. It's an amazing company. Offsetting. It's shocking how cheap and simple offsetting is. I mean, it's important to do, but it's a little bit of an afterthought. So we do offset all our shows and all of our carbon, but I mean, the focus is about reduction really, and sort of going, measuring, reducing, spreading awareness. Just quickly on this, I'm out of time, but yeah, I think for us, it's, as I said, it's about making sure that we're a business that is hand in hand creative and delivering excellence, but creating this conversation and having an impact. And it's good for our business. It's lowering energy costs. It's bringing good people towards us, and also clients. It's the right type of clients that we want to work with. If they're interested in our initiatives, then we tend to get on better and do better business. And next steps, I think just more of the same really, more reporting and more focus on these initiatives to help us reduce. And we're trying to work with our sort of studios like Netflix and Apple. We do a lot of, we have a lot of meetings with them about how we could use what we've learned and what we've created and make it a tool for other VFX companies to do the same thing, but perhaps slightly easier journey. That's it. That's our journey. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan. No, you can sit. Now we have Barbara Galante from Austria, from Ax Anima.
Hello.
People in culture from Ax Anima. And it will be a question maybe for afterwards. You in Austria think you have got some support from the funders, financial funders as well. So I don't know how it's in the UK, but people see this later. Thank you very much. Go ahead.
Thank you, Gudula. Thank you. Oh, great. Okay, I can barely see you, but it will be fine. Exactly, my name is Barbara. I'm very happy to be here today. I'm going to move this a bit because I need to move. For the next 20 minutes, I'm going to talk a bit about the company, Arx Anima in Vienna, about myself a bit, my role as a green film consultant, and also about the Austrian regulations, which are already in place, and so on. Let's get it started. So, to start a little bit with the studio. The studios are called Arx Anima. We are located in Vienna. This is our headquarters, but we also do have branch studios in Germany and in Spain, in Frankfurt, Leipzig, and Madrid. We are an animation studio, and we are focusing on 3D animation, on visual effects. We're producing currently feature films, series, but also advertisements and short formats. Other short formats. We currently have 3 feature films in production, which means currently we are pretty big with a bit more than 60 employees in Vienna only, and we have approximately about 30 more employees in Spain at the moment. And before I get to the other topics, I have a very little quiz question for you. Guess the gigahertz hours. And the question would be, how many gigahertz hours do you think were needed to render the fully animated movie Rabbit Academy Mission Egg Possible, which got released in 2022, which was a co-production between Austria and Germany, like we were co-producers here. I will reveal the answer at the end. And just in case, I don't know if everybody knows what a gigahertz hour is, you can imagine one computer with the power of 1 gigahertz running for 1 hour. So this is the gigahertz hour. So if you imagine this one computer rendering the whole movie, how many hours would this computer with 1 gigahertz need to render the whole movie? And you might think, what does this have to do with sustainability? But Jonathan already said it before, electricity, the render farm, is basically also for us, it has the highest impact, it has the highest footprint basically in our carbon emissions. And this is also where we can make, I would say, the biggest difference in our studio. But we will get back to this later. In the meantime, you can maybe think about it a bit. Green film consultant, which is me. I am green film consultant and I'm also head of people and culture at Arx Anima. I am Austria's first certified green film consultant for animation and VFX. And that means also, apart from consulting the productions per se, for example, that I was contributing to the new criteria catalog for animation, specialized in animation, of the Austrian Film Institute. And I am also now currently a member of the expert committee on sustainable practices of the Austrian Economic Chamber, where we want to develop the new eco label for animation, VFX, post-production, sound and music. I will also get back to this in a moment. To give you a little bit of an overview about the green filming requirements in Austria. So we have existing regulations, which means we have mandatory minimum standards. And I'm now talking about feature films in production, not development. So this is really feature films in production. We have mandatory minimum standards which you need to adhere to in order also to be eligible for funding money. This is one thing, so this is mandatory. On top of that, we also have the green bonus, which is, in case you go beyond these mandatory requirements, you are also able to receive a green bonus, which is 5% on top of the net production costs, which is nice. And something which is, I'm not sure if I would call it unique, but it's definitely special, are the additional costs, which means any additional costs which are related to green filming, they're eligible. For example, the green film consultant. Of course, my salary in order to do the green film consultancy is also eligible for funding. The other thing we have is the certification. We currently have the eco label in place, but this eco label is currently also only applicable for live action movies. And this is circling back now to the our Austrian Economic Chamber. This is also the reason why we are currently creating this expert committee in order to develop the eco label also for animation, post-production, etc. Good. So the sustainability measures, which we are currently doing as a studio, I tried to keep that short. I also tried to point out, let's say, the biggest factors for us, the biggest points for us. We have all, first of all, we have the team communication, which also starts basically the day you commit to the job, you also commit to green producing. So we have a paragraph in our employment contracts which already prepares you that we are producing in a green way, in a sustainable way, and you commit to that. Of course, on your first day of work, you get a proper briefing on our measures, on our practices, etc. And of course, I'm also in-house, which means everybody can always ask me. I am always there if something, if there's any questions, etc. Another big thing, again, is the electricity. It's, as mentioned before, has the biggest impact. And this is why I would say it all started also for us by obtaining green energy, green electricity from renewable sources, as this is really has a very, very big impact. Our studio supplies, which might sound small, but nothing I think is too small. For example, office supplies, just like pens, notebooks, Post-its, cleaning supplies, but also merchandise, for example, lanyards, T-shirts. We really make sure that everything is certified, biological, recycled, depending on the topic what it is, of course. The CO2 compensation or offsetting also, which is also plays a big part every time we cannot avoid the reduction. Almost, when we cannot avoid the emissions. Thank you. Thank you. Every time we cannot avoid the carbon emissions, we also compensate them, especially for traveling, whenever we cannot, for example, avoid a plane, taking a plane instead of a train or a bike. And of course, we also offset that. Something which I would like to point out is also that it's very important to go with trusted partners here because there are also some shady platforms out there. So always look out for gold standard partners when you want to offset carbon emissions. Reduce, reuse, recycle. It sounds a bit cliche, I am aware of that. But it is what it is. We try to reduce, we try to reuse, we try to recycle. And something, for example, which I'm also proud to say is that until today, we did not throw away one single computer, for example, within the last 11 years of the existence of the company. And this is basically because we have a waterfall system, a cascade system, where the computer always gets another purpose. And in case the computer really completely stops working and it's really completely unusable anymore, and what we do is for example, we build furniture out of it. I forgot to take a picture, but we have this, for example, there's 2 computers, the old computer towers, and we build a bench out of it in the courtyard. It's amazing. The F&B, the food and beverage, which is mainly the catering for our company events. We have the luxury of having a restaurant in-house, not in the studio, but in the same building. And the owner of the restaurant, she's an amazing cook, and she always makes sure that she cooks. She uses regional, seasonal ingredients. We always have vegan, vegetarian options, and of course, also options for lactose intolerant, histamine, not without histamine, without lactose, without gluten, whatever the team needs, of course, so that everybody will get happy. And also about the food and beverage, what we have, which is not properly catering, but we have our own courtyard in our building, where we also plant and harvest our own fruits and vegetables, like apricots, plums, figs, cherries, tomatoes, garlic, herbs, and everything. And this is, of course, free to use for every employee. So basically, every employee, everybody who's working in the studio is also free to come and take, cook, use whatever they want, whatever they can find, whatever they plant. Here is a little picture of the courtyard. This has been taken a week ago. It's very green at the moment. But of course, the measurements, having the measurements is nice, but it should and should not stop there. Of course, we want to also grow, we want to learn, we want to continue getting better and growing about that and learning also more about this topic. So some of our goals for the near, middle term future are, for example, the increase of renewable energy, which means we are already getting green electricity. But we would like, for example, to put the solar panels in this courtyard on the walls up in order to get even more green energy, green electricity. Or also to have a heat pump, for example, in the building. We want to implement a closed-loop service water system, which is very similar to also what Jonathan presented before, to cool our computers with the cold water and to heat up premises, for example, like a local school. We are in talks about heating a local school with our heated up water from our render farm. And of course, to facilitate the remote access to the hardware for our artists. This is something which is already in place. It's currently in the testing phase. So you can imagine that having artists working remotely from home, from another country, for example, and they want to log into their computers from somewhere else, which is not in the studio, but the computer is in the studio, and I'm sure that you all know the on-off button, which is like logging in is one thing, but how do you turn it on or off when you're not in the studio? So we have developed an app which allows artists to press this physical button remotely from anywhere in the world, basically, without having to log into the VPN, for example. This is currently in a testing phase, so this will be in place very soon. I have been invited to talk mainly about sustainability with a focus on ecological sustainability, but of course this is not the only sustainability which there is. So also as working with people and culture, basically also, this is a more fancy name for HR. We also focus, of course, a lot about work-life balance. We offer hybrid work, we offer remote work, home office. We also offer things like a workation for several weeks per year, because we have many expats, many people who come from other countries, and we want, in order to facilitate the going home for them and spending time with the families, their friends, their pets, we also offer a few weeks per year that they can go back there to any EU country, work from there, and yeah, the remote work, we call it the workation. Something else which, something else which we also are very conscious about are the working hours. So, for example, we do not have all-in contracts, which means the people, our employees, when they work full-time, but the moment they work more than full-time, they will be compensated for that in time, in money, whatever, you can choose. But this is something very important to us. And then, something else, maybe about the retention management. This is also a big point for us. The thing is that in Austria, there is not a lot of competition in this field, which means whenever we don't have a current position for somebody, these people, it's very unlikely that they stay in Austria because there is not a lot of competition in animation in Austria. And in order to keep these people in Austria so that we can get them also back for the next project, that we can offer them another job very soon, we also focus a lot on retention management, also knowledge transfer in the field of, for example, like that the people go on educational leaves, for example. And of course, diversity, equity, and inclusion, which is a very big topic for us, and this already starts, for us at least, at the job openings, so we are also very aware of our wordings and about the whole inclusivity, about, we call it the ARCS DNA, so that we really take care that we hire the people who fit into the team. Like they would say the team fit is basically probably the most important thing for us. Okay, let's get back to the quiz question. Does anybody have an idea? Does anybody want to take in a guess, maybe on how many hours? Mm-hmm. So if this computer with 1 gigahertz of power would render the whole movie, it would then run for 32 million hours, 366,165 hours. Which is more than 3 years, basically. And this is just in order to for you to get a better feeling of how much electricity we're talking here. So it's really, really a lot. I'm a bit too fast. I think I'm making up for Jonathan now. Yeah. That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Barbara. Now we are getting a bigger picture. Vincent, this floor is yours.
Thank you. So, hello, can I have the pointer? Oh, it's here. Okay, thank you. I'm Vincent Moncho. I'm from France, and I manage this festival, Octobre, Numérique, which is located in Arles. It's in the south. It's a city well known for its photography festival. Maybe you know it. It's beautiful. You should come to Arles and to the festival. I will be happy to welcome you. A bit from my, a bit about my background, maybe to start with. I have a master in cultural public policies, so we've learned a bit of ecological issues, but still not as much as we should. It was a few years ago now, but still I think we have some progress to do in education also to the future person working in the creative institutions. And then I've worked in mostly major contemporary art institution in Paris, such as the Centre Pompidou and also the Palais de Tokyo, where I was working there more especially on a new website that we try to make more eco-responsible. So we had, for instance, eco modes on the website. If you go to the Palais de Tokyo website, you have like a switch that you can activate, and that will just turn off, I would say, all the media content. So you will have like all the videos, the photos, with just a description, and the media won't charge itself automatically from pages to pages when you have activated this mode. So this is quite symbolic, but still like has some impact. And it was the idea of educate people on this issue without guilty them. You know, you have this in the conduct of change, this thin line between like pedagogy and shaming or guilty, and which can lead to a bit of ecological anxiety and everything, which can be counterproductive. And then I've worked at Louis Vuitton. I did some shows, cultural art shows around the world. So I had seen a different approach on the eco-responsibility topics. So this is where I'm speaking from. The festival, I've been managing it for 3 years now. This will be my 3rd edition in this year. I will show you, well, obviously, first, thank you to the NIFFF, thank you to Gudula, and everyone who made this possible, to Nadège, Pierre-Yves, and the technician and people who cleaned the room, and everyone. I'm really happy to be here and to share some of my experience. I will be talking more about perma-computing, which sounds a bit barbarian, but we'll get into this. But first, I would like to introduce the festival. It is called Octobre Numérique Monde. So it happens in October every year, and it's about like digital art. Basically, digital art meeting, well, new technology meeting contemporary art. And so we have this kind of cross point between arts and culture, who shapes all of our narratives, our form, our aesthetics, our language, and I will get back to the importance of this in the conduct of change. Of course, we have to take action, but to what is laying down all the cultural basement, I don't know the right word in English, sorry, is also really important. And through perma-computing, we can approach these two way of getting better in our conceptions. And the advanced technologies and the values that all link this together are inclusiveness, openness, and sustainability. When I say openness, I say it also in the sense of open softwares, you know, like in the computing world, of all of this sharing data that Jonathan was talking about, and get better together, I would say. So this is one of the main questions that we raise at the festival, and we suggest to sorry, my English is a bit rusty this morning, that we want to address and think collectively. So what technologies will make tomorrow's world? And among these technologies, we have real-time 3D, which is a bit different from animation or VX. It means when you have like video games or VR, this kind of form of arts, which implies real time and a kind of performativity between the spectator, the visitors, and the artworks. AI, obviously, augmented reality and all of the regime of mixed realities, blockchain, virtual reality, and artistic video games. Artistic video games or experimental video games is a huge focus of the festival. We are a few institutions in Europe and in the world to focus really on this kind of really interesting medium, because with experimental video games, you have something like really interesting in the aesthetics of it, in terms of synergy of senses. You have the sound design, which is really important, all the notions of new narrative techniques, the design, obviously, the world building and the worlding techniques, and it's all gathering through performativity experience with the player. So this is Arles, a bit of promotion. It's a Latin city, and we have the chance to do exhibitions and shows and performances in some like really old location, I would say, where like the virtuality of digital arts can meet the physicality of the Roman stone and Latin stone. So this is kind of places we do exhibition at, and this is everywhere, every year, sorry, we invite people to be part of the debate and either to show, to display their artworks or to share their research, and we are having like all of this moment of sharing together and feeling together and trying to think a bit the world of tomorrow and a more desirable role, and how culture and art can be part of this. So it's like exhibition, conference, workshops. I'm going like a bit quickly on this. And here you have some pictures. This is a show, this is a game by Saej Rahal that we can see on the TV. Like really interesting, really interactive, reacting to sounds of the visitors, and exploring the notion of symbiotic worlds and post-Anthropocene world. So it's something we address, like the art of sustainability in the forms and in the discourses of the artwork we show. So, permacomputing, what is it? Permacomputing is like a world mixing up, obviously, perma, which is the notion of durability, of permanence, and it's actually inspired, this term is inspired by permaculture. And Jonathan, I will be happy to ask you a few questions, because you told me you work in permaculture and did some research. And computing, which is like, especially in like supercomputing, maybe the most energy-consuming resource in this kind of technologies. So it's a bit like oxymoric to have these two, and it's carrying this kind of project to even wonder if it is possible to have like a permacomputing, to have like a form of computing which can be permanent and like doing a better social impact and environmental impact. So the term is quite new. It's around for a few years, actually, coming more from the Netherlands and also Germany, France. It's a mix between like researchers and also artists, designers a lot, because you have this kind of current in design about like speculative design that I think you know, and exploring possibility. This is linked also to, with science fiction and exploring alternative or speculative worlds to think better the world we are in. And also hackers and like technologists, you know. So it's like all of these people, really different backgrounds, gathering together and trying to craft this term, this banner, permacomputing. There is no definition like fixed or forged, and I think it's important. It's still a space of experimenting and defining, I would say, and it's also important that it stays like this, because, you know, like a few years back, we had this low-tech movement, like a lot of media fuzz about like low-tech, and there has been a bit of confiscatory movement of the notion of low-tech, you know, like, and it's something like, as green consultant, we can think about also, but our responsibility in maybe sometimes we depoliticize or de-radicalize a radical concept and way of doing things when, you know, like it has like a forged definition and then like a bit of textbook, you know, stuff to tick, and then the business companies just can have like a reduced version of it. I don't know if I'm clear in what I'm saying right now, but I think it's something interesting to think about. So this community is really aware of this and to try to get it like, to keep it political and open and on movement. And basically, it's the idea of making digital art in a responsible and sustainable way. So it's like, which is most interesting and what I wanted to share as artistic director of the festival is that at some point we were like, okay, but we're part of the problem, you know? Like we are doing this digital art festival, we are like having a huge impact on showing, on promoting artistic media which have a huge impact, such as VR, for instance, and stuff like this. So how do we do? Do we just stop? But we don't want to stop, obviously, because we still think maybe we should stop at some point or on some of the worst part of it, and I think we need to address this as well. And it needs to be like a collective decision. But we really believe in the importance of art and culture to shape also the broader culture and in the way we show narratives, the new aesthetics, the new languages. It can have actually a huge political impact. So we are also assuming this kind of role of culture and to have an impact, but considering the negative impact as well. And so we tried to, it was last year actually, we tried to say, okay, let's not have a theme this year. Like each year we have a theme for the festival. This year for the NIFFF is about the care. It's something we can find in some movies and in the selection. And for us it was like, okay, let's not have a specific theme, but let's try to think on our practices and on the artwork we show. And this will be the theme, like we will try to do a more responsible festival, and let's tell this story of how we succeed, how we didn't, and everything. So this is, doing this research, we found this permacomputing community, and we showed some artworks matching these topics. Maybe I can show you this. So, and we are a lot about like video games, and so we mixed this permacomputing concept with the notion of playground, which is something really interesting and something we thought in the conduct of change, because I really think video games or just gaming in general can really be a motor of change and of like collectiveness and conviviality. So we try to become a permacomputing playground, as we called it. So here are some of the principles. obviously optimizing equipment life, minimize energy consumption, emerging concept by permaculture is what I was saying before, and the use of existing resources. So you can find a link to the low-tech. A lot of the artists we showed at the festival through this theme were using like really old technologies, but in a really contemporary way. So, for instance, Pierre Corbinet and Quentin Lannes, they are French artists working with the Game Boy camera, you know, the Game Boy, the small, in 1996, sorry about that. They released like a small camera for the Game Boy that you could take picture with. And those two artists recently, they found this bag and they started to take picture with it. And it's like a really controlled creativity process. You can only adjust a few settings. And this is the idea. How, with this perma-computing, how you can create in digital art using constraints as a tool to multiply creativity, which is not something new in the history of art, like the writing, a lot of writers, surrealists. There is a movement in France called Oulipo, which was basically playing with the constraints to get into more invention, experimenting and everything. But they are taking it with the technologies we have, and I think this is important, and trying to say, okay, the constraint will be the planet boundaries, the limits of the Earth and of our environment. And let's integrate this as a constraint in our process of creation to create something like really different and to push some other aesthetics. The idea, as my job and as the talk I had with those artists, are also to propose counter-narratives and counter-aesthetics to the dominant aesthetics coming from like the big studios, the big tech industry, which I could tell are like a techno-maximalist aesthetics with, you know, like all this always more pixel, always more frame rate, always more like process, puissance de calcul and everything. So I thought it was interesting to see, not in a nostalgic way, not in a restrictive or negative way, you know, negative in the math sense, but how other artists are using already existing materials to promote other aesthetics. So basically, that was an introduction to permacomputing. Obviously, I could speak about this for a longer time and show you other artists, but I hope it's kind of clear. And maybe just to finish, I wanted to talk to you about the CEPIR really quickly, which is the acronym for Cas d'étude pour un immersif responsable. So basically, it's for sustainable VR, which is like has a huge impact in like mineral extraction, environmental problems, and also energy, but also in the material. And CEPIR was founded in France by the government inside of a bigger program called France 2030, and they did, like for all the sector, the measurements for the first time of the impact of VR in France. So it was like a huge and really sharp, really precise work that I really admire. And they had this livrable in the end, like a lot of outcomes to calculate with, like, you can download files to calculate your impact, and they have also some documentaries on it and some solution, like really practical solution. We are a bit late on labeling, I think, in France, like eco-labels and offsettings. at least is something we don't talk that much. Obviously, we talk about it, but it's not really in the practices itself. So I will be happy to learn from you on these two issues more. I think my time is up. Thank you so much, and yeah.
Please. Magst du in die Mitte gehen vielleicht? Ja. Da, oder dahin, an der Seite? Yeah, okay. So, thank you very much. A lot of inputs, a lot of interesting things to discuss. We don't have much time now. We have 15 minutes. So maybe just a short roundup and then open to the public, to the questions. I think that I thought the political and societal environment is quite important for the decisions you take in different countries, in the UK and Austria and France. Do you have any public support, or in UK, for example, or it's just your decision to do all these efforts as B Corp and so on, or it's like a movement, you feel part of it in UK, or you think it would be important? Maybe as Austria, you have regulations from the public sector as well, also in some way in France. So what do you feel? It's important to have labels or interaction with other companies, for example? You also work on these issues?
Yeah, I mean, in the UK we have some companies that are sort of dedicated to helping, but it's a lot to do with shooting productions. So we have Albert, and they're helping productions become more green, but there isn't so much in post-production. But yeah, I would support more help from anyone to help bring us together, to create more awareness. I mean, it has to be well executed, and that's another thing. But yeah, we feel very much on our own and creating a sort of own energy around it. There is sort of some support, but yeah, I think one of the hardest things was getting this off the ground, trying to sort of understand where to start, how to do it. So that's what the next step for us is, to try and sort of reduce that friction for other companies. But yeah, so in answer to your question, in post-production and visual effects, there isn't a sort of a standard practice or an organization helping, certainly not one in the UK or globally, and we'd like to be part of creating that.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. May you talk about Austria in the sense of which role has the regulations or the eco-labels and so on? It was, let's say, your idea as a company from Arx Anima to do some more steps towards sustainability, or it's also coming within political, let's say, effort in some way to do more steps in this sense?
Sure. Yeah. Mine is working.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, sure. So I would say that, I mean, it was, I would say, the original idea to do something definitely came from the company. Before even green filming was a topic in the funding landscape of Austria, for example, we started with that already. But I have to say that I am also personally very happy that there is now more awareness, more support, more fuss around the topic, because it's still, of course, also it helps us to develop, to learn, to grow, to still rethink things we're doing. So I think Austria in general is already in a very good place. Of course, there's always room for improvement, but I think it's, how should I say, the company who started it originally, even though without the label of let's do green filming now, but more with the label, okay, we have a certain social responsibility, we have the next generations, we are training the next generation, we are sharing our stories with the next generation and so on. So, and this basically also then got very, very easily into the flow of the Austrian support system, I would say. Yeah.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. In France, how do you feel within the French landscape? Let's say it's you are supported as well. You feel alone with your efforts, and because it's quite, in some way, it's not new in art, but in the entertainment industry, it's quite a new approach. How you could combine constraints, involuntary constraints, and sustainability.
Yeah,
or playfulness. Sorry.
Playfulness. So this is one tool of like going there, you know, to use playfulness, I think. No, we're not alone, and hopefully, and we are like growing and learning from each other. A lot of networking between the institution directly and also associations. For instance, in Arles, if I take the locality scale, we have like exchanges with like other association of biodiversity, material research, and everything. So it's also broader than just the art and culture or just the closed world of contemporary art, I would say. We have also from governments or like public policies, it's really incitative. That is to say, like some of the grants or subvention you can get for culture are conditioned or on your environmental policy, you know. So, but it's always like bonus or malus. It's never like something really strict or really regulated precisely. So I think we have a lot of road to do on this as well. Yeah.
As we just left 10 minutes, maybe there are questions or comments from your part. We don't see you very well, but yeah, please. Oh, yeah. Sonia.
Sorry. Thank you so much. My name is Sonja Schenkel. I'm also a certified green consultant here in Switzerland and green producer. I have a question for you, Vincent, and also maybe also for the other speaker. And by the way, I wanted to thank you. I was very much inspired by your presentation. That's been amazing. Thank you so much for that, foremostly. So you mentioned, Vincent, that you've been working also in Louis Vuitton. And for me, I always have this question in my mind that, in a way, filmmaking is a form of building a value chain. And I was wondering, in which way do you regard the possibility that filmmaking could become like a role model or like a lab situation to test sustainability across the value chain? That's the question to you, Vincent. And then maybe for the others, if you could explain in which way filmmaking is being taxed in your country through CO2 emission, if that's the case or not, because that's always something that I'm wondering about in Switzerland. Why are we not being taxed for our products that we are producing?
Thank you so much for your question. You mean like film industry evolution that we're talking about can inspire or be applied broadly to other businesses? Yes. I think it's a model, and like we kind of have like really good awareness, and we have in the film industry this kind of thing that I was trying to express, but I don't know if I managed to express it, but like it's a mix between taking actions and also supporting in the forms, in the narratives, like broader cultural changes, you know? And I think because of this, we can be, as a sector, I mean, as like agent of change, like something really impactful for one hand, but also really not avant-garde, but like really ahead and a model for others. And I think in this intersection lays down like something really, really important. I don't know what you think about it.
Yeah, I think storytelling is always you know, having a big impact. I mean, for us, we don't have much say in the types of stories that we're involved in, but I guess we're contacted more often now to be the visual effects vendor on a show that might be about climate crisis or something. So it's not really answering your question, but yeah. And to your question on tax, I have not seen any conversation around that yet. So no one is raising that topic, as far as I know, in the UK.
Maybe also quickly about Austria, because of the tax question for us. I'm just having some thoughts about that, because I understand very well what you mean, and I think in general it would be a way, of course. I think sometimes it's also a fine line between also what Vincent said during his presentation about working with a guilty conscience, or like also putting this into a negative frame, kind of like, if you don't do that, you will be punished, fined, whatever. Or if you try to take more the positive way with, I don't know, rewarding or something. I think there's also a fine line of that. Plus, I think, especially when it comes to filmmaking, we talked also with Gudula about this topic yesterday, that it is a big change, and even without having to pay more tax or something, I think it has an impact on the filmmaking industry in general, and it's a big change, and I think this change also needs a lot of time, and maybe also putting this obligation on the filmmakers, on the producers, on the directors, and everybody could also have a negative effect. I can imagine if it comes with such a obligation, I would say. I could imagine. This is just a thought.
I reminded myself that there is, it's not a tax, but like I think ITV or Sky in the UK, they won't greenlight any productions that don't follow the Albert certification. So I think they went 100% on that only last year. So you won't get funding or support from particular channels if you're not following guidelines. So I guess that's a start.
So you feel rewarded by your efforts? Let's say more clients, more influence, more money? No?
Not really, no. I think mostly it's been a bit of a personal project. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I'm rewarded in that I'm enjoying it. I think it's important. It gives me job satisfaction, if you like. But I don't think there's any financial impact, positive financial impact for the business. We're not getting more work or higher profit margins. Probably not the opposite. But I think I guess we're getting, as I said, like certain types of clients will come to us, and that we create stronger relationships, and those have higher values. So I guess the community around it is good, or like that's a positive impact for us as a business, and for the team. I guess there's people that would want to work with us, talented people that see us as different and want to come and work with us, for our mission. So yeah, it's not much financial impact, but other areas.
So do you also measure your impact or your influence on your clients, let's say? Because you said, I want to convince them in some way to work also in a sustainable way. Do you measure how many clients or also are applying now these measures or regulations or something?
I think we're moving towards a better relationship with our clients on the topic. I think we've been measuring for 4 years, and we're presenting the data and having the conversations with them. At the same time, they're assigning green officers to their teams that need to sort of go out and have the conversations, and so starting to happen. But yeah, I think we need, what we're trying to do at Dupe is just present the data and sort of understand our own data in a way that is palatable and is a sort of quick conversation, because it's just a lot of data right now, and it's sort of such a broad topic, and you can get lost talking about it. So I think we just want to try and boil it down to, this is why we're doing our carbon report per project, so and one important point for us at the moment is, how do you compare one show to another show? So if I go to Disney and say, hey, you spent 30,000 tons on carbon with us, and they say, is that good or bad, or and even if we compare it to a show with Netflix, those shows are different, they're more complex or not as many shots, so it gets a bit messy quickly. So we're trying to find ways to simplify that so it's easy to understand, and we can sort of go to the next step.
A last question or comment, because we are running out of time. You feel inspired? Yeah. Is there anything more, or want to share some experience? Because I think the networking and sharing experience is most important to support each other, because it's not easy. Yeah, it's not necessarily a financial award. In Austria, yes, in some way. Yeah, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
I hope we will have this.
I'm moving to Austria.
Pardon?
Dupe's going to Austria now.
Yeah. In France, how is the situation? Do you think there will be a bonus or something?
I hope so. But I don't know yet. But just to bounce back on what was Jonathan saying, the first sorry, I don't have the word. The first impact for carbon in the festival is the displacement, transportation of its visitors. So by really, really far, so, and then you have the food, the electricity, the VR are coming really low, But I insisted on it because we have a responsibility in legitimizing and supporting artists or one form of art or another as manager of cultural institution. And so I think through this shift in aesthetics and everything, you can have an impact, even if in the Bilans carbone is not the highest, it's the transport of visitors. And I was thinking also, it's a bit provocative, but of doing a Nutri-Score. Is it English, Nutri-Score? No. It's when you're going to buy some cereals or some food in the supermarket, you have this kind of ranking systems of quality. And to do one for the artworks in my selection, in my programming. Mm-hmm. But then it's raising a lot of questions. What should you add? How do you ponderate them? Do you even need and should discriminate an artwork because it's consumption beyond its discourse? I don't know. I would just end by saying that as a programmer, I don't want to display in the festival an artwork which speaks about the burning forest and is making the forest burn, in his way of having an impact, basically. So I think it's on this that I'm thinking a lot.
Yeah, I hope that we also, it's about finding a way of communication. I think this is very important because I remember here in Switzerland still people say, no, we already have so much to do and we have so little money, and then now we also have to follow green protocols and so on, like this. So how to combine, in some way, playfulness, how to combine with these ideas, or also the need to change something, how we could communicate. And I think this is an important thing to, important initiatives from your side as well. So thank you very much. I was inspired.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you.